Hi, birthday girl. Hi, mama. Good evening. Welcome. Hi, Olisa. Welcome. Godly Medic. Talk with Sarah podcast. How are you guys doing? Welcome. Good evening. How's your day been? Miss Black. Hey, God. Amaka, Happy New Year. We should talk soon. How are you guys? How's your day been? I'm excited about this live tonight. We all need it. Well, maybe not all, though. Some people are better than the rest of us. Some people are really disciplined. Some people are cool like that. Our guest is here already. Hi, Lami. It's been a long minute. How are you? Good to see you here. President Toastmasters. President of her husband's house. Hi, Amy. How are you? All right. Our guest is here, and I'm going to bring her up right away so we get to business and we're out of here as soon as possible. All right. So let's just start shouting now before she enters. Hi, Bonnie. Welcome. Adaora, I've accepted this. It seems not to be. Okay, there we go.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. Hey. How are you?
Good.
We go there. All right. Now that okay, how are you? You're good. Your son looks like adult. I'm just seeing it for the very first time in my entire life.
I would hope that he looks like me.
He does.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. I'm looking forward. Cool. Awesome.
So,
All right.
you didn't tell me that we were wearing fancy glasses. I would have given them.
So that I won't disgrace you. Lumina and I look alike, right? Tell me there's something similar about us in the complexion, in the glasses.
No,
say something.
I will say thank you so much for dressing down a little bit. I would have felt.
Guys, who can't you hear? You can't hear me or you can't hear Adaora.
No, you're cutting in and out though. I noticed.
Yeesh. Except we are fresh. Love it. Yes, we look alike. Love it. The skin is yellow, but hers is yellow. My own is ring light that is helping my destiny. Okay,
Oh
I?
No, I can hear you.
All right. Okay, we're gonna go right into it. So I can't remember the first time I saw you. The very first time, but I know it must have been at school.
Yeah.
You know the school I'm talking about. And you told me that we went to QC together. I'm like, hey, where are they QC? Where I know Stefan Gear? Where I know see person where get sense like this? How did I know that the gods were living amongst us? And then ever since I've been following you and just being in total awe. Because I'm like, both of us are women. We are walking the same earth. Where will I start from? And I feel you're just so admirable. I know that you're not, well, let me not say I know, Sha, but you're just different. And sometimes different might be okay. Should we understand her? Should we try to understand her? This intelligence is too much. I know there was a time, and I think I told you this after some months, that I felt like talking to you. I didn't have anything really intelligent to say. So let me just be at a distance. I would read your posts and I'll be like, there's just too much sense here. I feel like you're one of those people who is 7, 10, 15 years ahead of her times. And from today, I was going through your stories yesterday. And I said, you see, these are the issues I have with you, Adaora. We are not ready for you. And
can we call?
Asking my question here. We take 5 steps forward and then you've charted new courses. And I think it's really impressive. I think you've done a great job. So I'm going to start with that. We'll talk about less serious things later, but let's just dive into it because the way time used to go on these things is a lot. I was going through your stories yesterday, tied right into the first question that I have. You seem to have been working almost as you popped out of your mother's womb. And you've been doing things that people now are only just beginning to catch up on. Content creation, design. Did you hear the last thing I said?
Yeah. You said content creation, design.
Yeah. You've been doing these things since. And now people are shouting about it and calling their big figures about it. And, you know, posting and tagging and doing the collaborations and the partnerships and all. But you've been there and you've stayed the process for so long. So what has been driving you? Were you just born ambitious? Was it your upbringing? Was it that you do not have money, your family, and like say, Laila, I must not go back to village. I have to make it. Is it Igbo blood? Why? How have you been so driven and determined and consistent over the years? I'm not in topic.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to this live. I think that what you're doing with the Instagram live sessions is very important. Having important conversations, extremely inspiring, you know, and you're someone that I've always also, you know, admired your work, your values, your ethics, and so it's very exciting for me to be on the platform today. So thanks so much for bringing me on. I don't know about this, you know, me running right from my mother's womb thing, but but I think, you know, for me to answer that, first of all, like the first thing that I always have, you know, had at the back of my mind, and I've said this countless times online, is that I'm a spirit in a bottle, right? A spirit in a container. And one of the things that I strongly believe, right, is that I'm on a mission in this world to help people become a better version of themselves, right? And that simple mission has translated in so many different forms. So for example, one of the things that I also strongly believe is that we're all multi-purpose beings and we all have the ability to do multiple things at the same time, right? Over the period that we are here. And because I think about us being multiple purpose beings from the angle of, you know, multiple expressions of God, right? Us being multiple expressions of God in all, I believe that this is something that I need to be able to show people, right? I need to do it. It's almost, I almost sometimes feel like my life is like a lab rat. I'm like a lab rat, right? Sometimes it feels experimental, where for me to be able to wholeheartedly teach the things that I teach, and to express the way that I express, I feel like I need to go through it, right? And so that is something that I have actively, you know, done over the years. And so many people will say, you know, Adaora is a jack of all trades, master of many, right? You know, over the years, I've also now taken all of these ideas and developed my life in such a way that it is built around 3 work pillars, right? So just to kind of streamline this for those who are listening, right? So yes, I'm a multi-purpose being. Yes, we have the ability to do these things, but what are the things that sort of drive, what would I call my core pillars when it comes to my work? And the 3 core pillars for me are simple: my mission, my profession, and philanthropy, right? So I've taken everything that I'm about and put it into these 3 things. My mission is the work I do with Lumination, which basically is, you know, empowering individuals and organizations to live on purpose and to work with purpose, right? My profession is as a brand strategist, right? That is a skill that I have developed over time. And my profession as a brand strategist allows me to interpret other people's dreams, right? Basically using brand and storytelling, right, to help them reach their target audience, to help them express the dreams and the visions that God has planted in their hearts, right? That's my profession. And then I love to give, and so philanthropy is what I express through Socially Africa, which is basically, you know, giving back to the community through the different initiatives that I do. So for me, everything that I do has that thread of purpose running through it, right? So it may feel like I'm doing so many things, but to be honest, it usually has to fit within one of those 3 things. So if I touch anything, if you if you see me doing podcasts, if you see me, training people, you see me doing this, it's coming from those three things. Yeah? What do you think?
Releasing album.
Yeah, exactly. So it's coming from that foundation, right? Of just understanding that I want to always be in a place where I can show people, like through action. Not just teach them head knowledge, not just be like, oh yeah, I read this book, guys, and so I wanted to kind of tell you about these ideas I had in this book. My thing is always, push yourself, right? So when I say, for example, Adaora, see what it's like to, if I'm writing something, which I currently am, by the way, I've been writing for quite a while, but when I'm writing something that I want to release, I'm like, I want to make sure that I put myself through some of the experiences so that I can just speak from that place, right? So yeah, that's really what it is. I won't necessarily call it ambition. I would just call it, just an expression of the spirit, right? Of the spirit.
Wow, amazing. You've said a lot already, and I'm going to try to fashion a couple of questions out of what you said in no particular order. I love how you said you're on a mission, and there's something my husband has been trying to teach me about the last 2 years that I'm only just really getting in the last maybe 8 months of my life. And he says, to treat like a business that is profitable. Treat your life like an institution to be studied,
yeah.
And your life like lived in and have dominion. And I'm like, this life, is it that deep? Apparently it is. Apparently it is, and there's so much to do. So I love the fact that you said your life is a mission and is an expression of, you have multiple expressions of God flowing through you. I know people have always had that issue of, I have many gifts. Should I focus on one or should I do everything? So what's your advice to those kind? I think you've already said it anyway. I think you're saying streamline into XYZ and bring whatever you want to do under XYZ, right?
Yeah. I mean, build it around values, build it around the things that are important to you, right? The reason why you are even doing this in the first place, right? I think that is what has helped me. So it never really feels like I'm doing many different things. To the outside world, it may feel like that, right? But for me, it is all fitting. It's all part of this puzzle, right? I'm like, okay, this fits under this particular category. This fits under this particular thing that I'm trying to do. And so I always make sure that I'm weaving it in a way that it is hitting my ultimate mission, and that's why I always think it's very important for us as individuals to just be very clear. And it takes a while, right? Over the period of your life's journey. For different people, they figure it out at different points in times and seasons. But I think at some point you have to sort of be able to introspect and figure out why exactly you're on this earth, because I honestly believe that, we were all created to solve an existing problem. There's no, as you mentioned that your husband had said, like, there's nobody that is just here floating. We're not here to coast. We really are not. I don't think that God will, waste resources. And I feel that we're all put on earth to solve an existing problem because there's so many problems in the world. So, and it doesn't always have to be big. So when I say solve an existing problem, sometimes we're thinking, oh, it has to be, something massive. And sometimes it's not necessarily something massive. I was part of Darius. I don't know if you know Darius Daniels. He's amazing, right? He has this mentorship program called Daniel's 10. It's on spiritual intelligence. And I was part of his mentorship program a few months ago, about 3-4 months ago. And one of the things that he teaches is how it's important for us to look at the core sectors in the world, right? So you look at the education sector, you look at agriculture, food, all the different sectors that exist. And then you ask yourself, right, what sectors do I want to plug into? To be of value in, right? Sometimes you'll cross sectors, so you'll do something in education, do something in finance, and that's fine. But typically for most people, there's like a core, there's a primary sector that they want to play in, and then there's secondary sectors. So for me, for example, I primarily play in the education sector, right? So everything I do with regards to mindsets is based on the fact that I want to elevate human consciousness, right? And that is more in the education sector.
Right. Love it. Okay. So as we begin to advance in our question, so what would you call...
Sorry, we have time. You have time, so don't feel like you have to rush. I have time if you have time. So don't feel like you have to rush.
Okay. Thank you. But still, I'll try to respect your time because I know you have other things to do in life. What would... Now we're talking about performance pressure, and we're really going to start getting into some nitty-gritty, because I'm like, this your story you even posted, it can cause performance pressure, but we want to put it in perspective tonight, right? So what would you define as success or achievement or accomplishment, or what would you define as someone fulfilling their purpose even when they're here, before they even die? What would you say is success? I'm fulfilling my purpose, I'm accomplishing, accomplishing. Yeah.
Okay, so just speaking from personal experience, right? Success for me is fulfilling purpose across my life's pillars. And for me, my life's pillars are everything from spirituality to my relationships, to my learning pillars, to finance, to my health. These are things that are my core life pillars, right? So I don't think about purpose as being tied only to work, right? I feel that there is purpose in being a daughter, in being a mother, in being a wife, in being a friend, in being a mentor, in being a leader, right? There is purpose in those things. So for example, about a week and a half ago, I sent my mom on an all-expense paid trip outside of the country. And this is something that I'm super duper proud of, right? Because for me, that is success, because I believe that part of my purpose in my parents' life, right, is to be a catalyst to show them abundance, right? They have had abundance, but I feel like part of my work is to be a catalyst for that abundance, right? And as I'm sharing that, let me just clarify that it's not necessarily something that I view as a responsibility as much as it is something that I derive joy and pleasure from. Do you know what I mean? So for some people, it's like, oh, because our parents struggle hard for us, oh, I must take care of them. That's fine, right? That might be your core reason. For me, it is success because I feel a level of joy doing it, right? And I believe that it is something that I was born to do for them as well. So success for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be like the big things, right? It's a series of the small things. So for example, success today would be that I drank enough water because that contributes to my health pillar. You know what I mean? It contributes to pillar. So that's my success for today, right? So I don't really think about success from the angle of one pillar. I think most people tend to only think about their financial pillar, so they tie success to that. So people only think about professional, they tie success to that. For me, it's like, okay, how can I invest in all the little things that are big things, because that's the core of who I am. So I want to invest in my friendships, I want to invest in my relationships, I want to invest in my learning, I want to learn something, because that's a pillar that's important to me. I want to build my finances, I want to make sure that my container is healthy, because at the end of the day, we can be spirits all we want, but if the container is weak, forget the spirit. The spirit has no container to operate in, So we have to think about success. I believe, using metrics that are personal to us ultimately.
I love it. I love it. So it doesn't have to be something big, something massive, something that is trending, as long as it's something popular in your life or your values or your purpose, and you're steadily progressing in that in itself is okay. Whether you have 2K followers on Instagram or you have 2 million followers on Instagram,
exactly,
you're succeeding.
I mean, exactly. You're spot on. You're spot on. Like that's really what it is. See, people can view you, and you talked about seeing my stories yesterday, right? People can view you as successful all they want. If you don't feel successful because you are not nurturing your pillars, it does not matter how people feel about it or what people think about that person, the perception people have of your success. It doesn't matter, right? And that's why those metrics need to be very personal, right? You need to be able to know, like, what are the things that are really important to me? And the truth is, you're not always going to be successful across all your pillars at the same time. So you're going to have to, you get what I mean? Like, you're going to have times where it's like a roller coaster, right? I'm doing well here, I'm not doing well here. I'm doing well here. Okay, this one is, dipping and I need to work on it. But you will cite that moment of relief and success when you make a win somewhere. So for example, right, some days success for me is getting to school on time. Because as you know, school runs, I'm a late comer to school runs. So sometimes that's what success is, because I'm like, okay, I'm early, I got there on time, my son is happy, he's like, yes, mommy, you made it on time, great, I'm like, yeah, I'm successful today. And it doesn't matter what anything else, if anything else is lagging, I'm just like, the fact that I made it to school on time today and made this young man, super excited because he was expecting me late. Hey, it worked, right? So sometimes it's that.
Hey, cool. Getting some relief as we go. Okay, so performance and pressure.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Performance and pressure, are they always bad, especially relating it to these social media streets where everybody now lives their lives?
Bad.
Yeah. Is performance bad? Is there a place for it to not put up an act, but to represent, to come correct, to put it all together, to get the microphone for your production, to show the nice reels, and you travel to the abroad, and you're inside beach, and you're doing your hand like this, and you have one nice reel that is, doing voiceover for you in the background, showing your content and things you're doing. Is there a time good? Is there a time that it dips and goes south? And then pressure, is there investing in you? And is there pressure that is just altogether wrong? Can they swing both ways, or it is what it is?
That's a great question. So here's the thing. For me to answer that, I think I'll reach a little bit into my Christianity to answer this one. I honestly, so first of all, right, and this might be unpopular truth for me, right, but I honestly believe that Jesus Christ was a chief performer, right? And there's even that song, that song we used to sing when we were growing up, that says, anywhere he went, he was doing good. The mighty healer, he healed the leper. When the people saw him, they started walking right anywhere he went. My Lord was doing good. I mean, Jesus Christ was a chief performer, chief influencer, right? And whenever he went somewhere and whenever he did something, people were inspired to do the same. So I don't necessarily, I feel like performance has its place, right? Now, where it gets dicey is the intent, the why. Why are you performing in the first place? Because the truth is, we are all living, breathing performers, right? If you're not performing to the outside world, you are performing to your family, you are performing to your friends, you're performing to your spouse, right? Sometimes you're even performing to your own self as well, right? And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. So the question that I feel that we need to ask that is more important is, what is my motive for performing? Right? And in moderation, that performance, right, is fine. Now, if performance becomes the only way that you can exist in this world, then there's a problem. It's something for you to now look into, is that, man, the only way I can exist in this world is to continuously wear masks, right? To wear a mask, because I feel unworthy. For some people, they feel unworthy. They feel like if they're not performing, then people don't necessarily find them valuable, right? Sometimes even let's even forget work. We'll talk about work, but let's forget work. Let's even just think about our relationships. Sometimes you're in relationships, whether it is a friendship, a marriage, whatever type of relationship. You're in a relationship where you feel that your worth is dependent on the way that you perform, right? The things that you do, your value is got from that thing, from that role that you're playing. And so you can get so tied to that being the only way that you can exist, right? And so when somebody else maybe says to you, you know what, baby, you need to stop performing. You're like, what does that even feel like? I don't even know myself when I'm not performing. Because, do you get what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like, I don't even know myself without that. I think those are the points where we really need to introspect, and ask ourselves, like, why is it that we're performing? But I feel like if you have that balance, between, knowing that, look, I'm self-aware enough, and I understand that, sometimes I will find myself in situations where I do actively need to perform, because that is also part of me being able to express, right? And to also even showcase my work, because even those of us that are, of course, strong storytellers, right? Sometimes as you're telling those stories, you are performing, right? I mean, you are, because it's not, but the motive is why I can tell the story, right? So I'm saying to myself, I want people to read this, and I want to receive messages back that basically say, yo, because I read this thing, this is how it changed my life, or I'm going through this particular situation right now and I can relate, right? So for me, that the risk that I take with vulnerability, because vulnerability is a huge risk, but I really believe it's strength. But the risk I take with vulnerability doesn't really feel like a risk, because the impact and the results are there, So it's, yeah, I just think that we just have to be careful not to overperform. Yeah.
About pressure, that is all pressure. I be pressured into inspiration, and then can I be pressured into just doing the one they did not send me?
Can I be pressured into inspiration? Can you give me context to that?
So we're seeing all these Instagram reels and all these, this person did this person does that, this person just bagged another award, this person, like, okay, so is there pressure? This is me, I can do this as well, I know this something resonates with me, and then is it just I cannot carry last shey now you waka come, God, when let me do my own too?
Yeah, you know yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that, healthy pressure is fair. I just think that, again, this is where self-awareness also comes into play, knowing self-awareness and purpose, right? Again, knowing what your purpose is, what your mission is, and then knowing, at your very core, who you are, what is important to you, and also knowing the times and the seasons that you're in, because we're on the same time, but we're not on the same time. We're all in different, we're all in different times and seasons. So I think sometimes, it is not sometimes, every time, it is important for us to not let other people's lives put pressure on us. But as humans, it's gonna happen, because that's just, again, that's what I always say, we're spirits in a human container. We're not floating spirits. It would have been so nice if we're floating spirits and we didn't need to be in a human container and deal with human emotions and have to integrate with humanity. But that is not our reality, right? We are in containers, which means that sometimes the container will control the spirits, even though it should be the other way around. So, yeah, I mean, so sometimes I think, this is where we continuously have to put ourselves in a place where we are, sometimes it's even solitude. Like, solitude works for me. I just sit down sometimes and I'm just like, I need to introspect and kind of think about all the things that are pinching me, so that I am aware. At least I can acknowledge it, I'm aware. And in that awareness, I can decide what to do with it. I can decide how to channel that pressure into inspiration, right? I can, and sometimes, you'll even find that some of the things that you think are putting pressure on you, honestly, they're not even what you want. And I'll give you an example, right? So for the, about vision boarding, right? You know how people cut out magazines and they make a vision board and everything. Okay, right. Now, for the longest while in my life, whenever I would vision board, I would basically put stuff that just seemed so cool on my vision board. So I would put things like, a Mercedes, and I've said this before in one of my sessions a long time ago, many years ago, but I would put stuff like Mercedes, multiviolence, Paris, like all these places, right? About places that I wanted to go and things I wanted to do. So I would cut out all these things because, hey, that's what you do during vision boarding exercises. And the more that I started to just kind of take time to know myself, to know the things I want, to know where I'm going, to know what, forget even where you're going, forget purposes, to just know who it is that I am at my core and what is important to me. I started to realize that, first of all, it'll be very nice to go to Maldives. I've been to Paris before, very nice. However, I really want to go to Japan. You know, I'm fascinated by Japanese culture and history, right? And so I was like, oh, Adaora, you really want to go to Japan? How come I've never really put it on a vision board? You know, I don't want a Mercedes. It'll be very nice if someone gifts it to me, but I will not use my money to buy a Mercedes. Not because I don't think Mercedes is great, but really, I would really like a Prado. Somebody needs to gift me a Prado. It's just something like, do you understand what I mean? Like, I started to say to myself, I'm like, you know, these are things I genuinely like. Like, I see a Prado go by and I'm like, that's my next car. You know, a newer, you know, please don't give me, if you're on this call, I want to give, don't go and give me a 2010 Prado or Land Cruiser. But you know, like, I started to realize that these are things I wanted to do. When I started to think about, for example, concerts I want to go to, I'm like, oh, it'll be nice to go to a Backstreet Boys reunion. No, like, even when I listen to music, right, I'll say to myself stuff like I have different playlists. Sometimes I'm like, why do I have to listen to newer music? What if there's some songs that remind me of when I was younger, when I was a teenager, you know? There were songs I used to listen to back then that really sparked joy for me. So now my playlists on Spotify, I make playlists that also spark joy for me. And sometimes it's old songs. I don't have to keep up with the new stuff, you know, just because it is the future, you know? So I think sometimes we need to go back to those things to say, man, what do we really want? And I think most people do not know what they want. I think that most people just move with what is trending, what other people want. So your vision board will end up being somebody else's vision board. You know? So you're like, I want these things that I really don't. So I would just say, you know, honestly, go back to some of those things and look at what do you want? What do you like? What do you like? You know, so if I walk into somewhere, for example, and they say, oh, you know, we've got champagne, they're pouring champagne. I genuinely do not like champagne. I don't. I'm not forming that I'm a Christian and I want to drink. I'm not forming that I'm a Christian and I don't want to drink champagne. It's not that I don't like it. It tastes like piss to me, not to other people. So here's the thing. You're not going to force me to drink it. There is no amount of peer pressure that is going to tell me that that is what I want to drink. If I want to drink Ribena, I will drink it, you know, in public because I like it. Yeah.
But drinking Ribena.
You know, just carry your own drinks to the wedding, to any wedding you're going to, any event you're going to. Just carry what you want and go and enjoy it. It's not by force. So it's not by force to have what they're giving you. You know, it's just what it is.
I hope a lot of people are being delivered right now, because really sometimes you're pursuing so passionately what you're clamoring. It's like how they say you try to go up a ladder for 50 years and in year 51 you realize that you've gone up the wrong building.
Absolutely.
And you know, to and look for another ladder and begin to look for the right building can really, really, really be painful. It can take time, except God has mercy on you and quick work in your life, right? So it's better that you start with who you really are, not just what is happening and what is trending. You said something. Okay, there are two questions I want to ask before what I want to say now. You said something about checking our motives when we are performing, influencing, or whatever it is we're doing. But I've noticed that the high can become very and the corner of your heart, pushing it a bit, I'm dipping it. This is a little extra. But there's the high that comes from genuine transformation that you can see in the lives of people. There's the high that comes from the likes. There's the high that comes from the reshares. There's the highs that come from seeing Instablog repost your content. The highs that come from the invitations that come to you. People that you never thought would notice your life your life's rhythm on the earth. You now have their emails in your inbox. Now you're doing figures. There is a high that comes with it. And it's like how they say for some pastors, you preach something for a long time and it don't they work. Miracle don't they happen. They give tithe. They don't they give offering. But now, 15 years later, you realize that it's wrong. To go back is hard. So how do you, as someone who has performed, who is doing well, who people like, you have the crowd, you have the clout, you know that you are doing extra. You know that your message is now even shifting a bit. But it can be very addictive that you don't know how to come back, or you don't even want to come back because you don't want to go back to being just ordinary. How do high performers, how do influencers, how do celebrities deal with that?
Ooh, that's a very So first of all, right, when we even talk about ascertaining, whether you're expressing from a place of your talents or gifts, or whether you're expressing from a place of comparison, because that's pretty much where you're landing with your question, right? Whether you're expressing from a place where it has just moved you in a particular direction. The first thing is that I know that, we always know, first of all, we always know, like, I feel like you can lie to everybody else in the world, but you really can't lie to yourself. It's not for that maths, right? I think that as humans, we have a strong discernment game. I mean, sometimes when you see people comparing themselves to when we see people comparing themselves to us, like, we're very quick to be like, oh, this person's always trying to copy me, or they're trying to, this. But you know what they say, that when you're pointing, right, you're pointing the three fingers back to you. That's what we always say. And I feel like sometimes we need to keep in mind that, we are sometimes what we say that other people are first. I want to land on that before I answer your question. So the first key for me is to first accept when you are playing the comparison game. I think that the challenge that most people have is that they're still in denial. So even when they are going in that direction, or when water they carry them go, we will try. Most people, I would say we, but most people will try to come up with reasons, right? They'll try to make it logical why it is that they need to continue doing these things. Now, in that same light, right? So let's not even just think about people who are, who water is carrying them going, and they're like, oh, I'm on that high. There's the dopamine, that you're getting from those things. Let's also think about people who have said certain things in the past and no longer even believe that, but cannot go back to say that, man, I know I've said this thing, but guys, my life I've grown, or I've figured out certain things, and you know what? I don't believe that anymore. It's the same reason, the same thing that keeps you from I guess, pulling yourself back into not being over performative, is the same thing that also keeps you from admitting when you are wrong, right? And saying this thing. And that thing is the state of your heart. Is the state of your heart, I think that is why one of the things that is very important to me personally is I'm always like, I need to have a heart check from time to time, because when my heart is contaminated, then everything else is going to pull me in. Because you know how they say that sometimes we're fighting these battles, but you are not fighting the battles are not battles that you can see with your eyes, as we know, right? From a spiritual place, we know. So sometimes when we're thinking about these, when we're talking about Satan, or we're talking about evil, and we're saying we're fighting the battle of evil, it's like sometimes the battle of evil is here. It's here. It's not out there. It's here. The state of your heart will determine how it is that you operate. So I think that it is important that people always, again, if you see yourself I said it from the very beginning, if you see yourself as a pipe into the ocean, which is pretty much, pipe is a conduit, right? So if you see yourself as a pipe into the ocean through which, God flows to others, if you see yourself as that, I feel that you understand that kingship is responsibility and not reward, right? Alone. it's responsibility and reward if we're embracing the and, but is responsibility. And I think that when you operate from that place of understanding that it is responsibility, you have to find, you have to always introspect. You have to always go back, go back to self to be like, okay, yeah, this is moving me. I'm the dopamine high is too much, and it's a huge rush.
Right.
Sometimes yeah, because sometimes, I mean, just even from a strategy perspective, there are times where you will, what is it called? You will try to ride on the momentum, right? So you're like, I'm getting momentum now. And let me tell you something, Soju. This is something I've seen happen over and over again. Sometimes in your bid to override the momentum, right? You end up doing something that messes up your entire brand. I've seen it happen to too many people over and over again. They're like, I'm so excited, I'm getting hits. Okay, let me post more. So it's like you first post the first one that has a large chunk of your leg showing. There's nothing wrong with showing your leg, but you get what I mean? You have done the one up to here. Then people are like, yes, I love it. And then in that dopamine high, right? The next day, you're like, let me give them again. By the time you give them the fourth one, everybody starts abusing you, right? And you're like, I should have just stopped on that first one. I should have just stopped on that first one because our brain, honestly, like sometimes it's like we have to be able to control these things, because if you don't, you're gonna land in pepper soup. So even I personally have experienced times when the momentum is mad, and I'm just like, it's happening, it's great. And I think because I have trained myself over time, right? When my human container is struggling to say, look, let's do this, let's do that, let's post this, let's do that, I'm just like, it's not that deep. The momentum will come again. It will come again. Like it's not a once in a lifetime thing. Do you get what I mean? It will come again. So, that's that's really my thought.
Wow. Amazing. As in, we really need to know who we're performing for and why we're performing. Otherwise, people will throw us in different directions. I know this life, especially this same social media that all of us, we are looking for clout. They're the same people that will drag you. They're the same people that will disgrace you. If you do not know your values, you do not stand by them, and you do not do the work that God sent you to do. Okay. Let me ask the question that I did not plan, but you spoke about introspection. And I think being introspective is one of the toughest things for human beings to do. I think it can be really hard because, especially in the dispensation, if you will, that we live now, everything is hurried, everything is fast, everything is happening at the same time. It's really weird to sit with yourself and hear only your own thoughts. It's hard to sit down without swiping your phone. It's hard to sit without flicking through Netflix and finding what and Netflix is so annoying because you're scrolling, and you're like, okay, I'll watch this one later. This one does not really make sense. Okay, maybe this one, option one. I'll come back. Okay, option two, let's see. There is so much going on in your mind that even when you're trying to sleep sometimes, especially if you are a mom, as you're trying to sleep, you are preparing timetable for the next day. You're thinking about what daddy is going to eat. You're thinking about the PTA meeting the next day. It's hard to even fall asleep sometimes. And then it's now worse when you feel, and thank God you've dealt with that already, when you feel like you're not even at your best. To sit down with yourself and confront yourself and say, babe, guy, this is what you need to do better. This is what you need to do better. If you are doing very well and you are blown up and down the place, it can still be hard to call yourself to order and say, this is what you should be doing better. This is what you should be doing better. What practical things can we do to still the noise around? I know you've spoken about checking the state of your heart. You've spoken about knowing your core. You've spoken about your pillars and all of that. Are there practical things we can do to get out of the crowd, just like Jesus did so many times? Jesus could have done many more miracles, but Jesus is like, I need to go and pray. I need to go and rest. I need to talk to my 12. I need to pour into them. I know that in 3 years we'll soon finish. I cannot be going around doing miracle, because they say miracle, no, they tire Jesus. Make I just, they go up and down, up and down. He was on an assignment. He knew how to, silence the noise and commune with his Father and recalibrate before he went to face these Pharisees. Because I feel like maybe Jesus might have forgiven the Pharisees a lot more if he didn't have time to recalibrate. So what are some practical, maybe 1, 2, 3 things? I mean, I've seen some of your videos. You pray, you meditate, you read, you drink nice juice that wipe out all the bad toxins in your body. What are some practical things we to intro sense?
Yeah. So I'll start by, before I go into the practical tips, I'll start by saying that it's very important that we first of all understand what the benefit of introspecting is. Because if you're going to do anything in this life, like as human beings naturally, right, we want to know the benefits. And if you are experiencing the benefits of something, right, it becomes priority for you. So point in case, I know the benefits of taking my vitamins. I know what happens when I don't take my vitamins. I know the way I feel, right, when I'm not taking care of my health. And for that reason, it's easy for me to take whatever knowledge I have and to actually apply it. Because I'm like, if I'm applying this thing, I can see the benefits. So therefore, you can't even convince me why I shouldn't do this thing. So sometimes when people, for example, maybe see me on Instagram and they're like, oh, you know, this person just seems to be living this Zen life in Lagos City. How can you be Zen in Lagos? It is because I understand, first of all, the benefits, right, of the life that I have created for myself, right? And if I'm going to do the mission work that I need to do in this world, I need to make sure that my container is continuously, right, in a state where it can operate at optimal capacity, right? I need to know that I am taking care of my container. I'm taking care of my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit. And I think that once you establish that, because if you don't establish that, it does not matter what tips I give you, right? It will never be a priority. There will always be something fighting for your attention, standard. But I think that when you prioritize certain things, people, even the people that we're afraid of that won't fit into this idea, right? This our idea of taking care of ourselves, you realize that they will start to fit in. And I want to give you an example. One of the things that I set in stone several years ago was that I will not work on Fridays. It became in the beginning, I remember when I was running the experiential company, when I was running my creative agency back in the day, people were like, so if clients calls you on Friday, you mean how? It's not possible. In this Lagos, clients don't listen, it's not America, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And I remember that, and the reason why I had established it back then was because I had a pastor. He wasn't my direct pastor, but he was, one of our pastors who was usually only available on Fridays. So he used to come every Friday to do prayers with me, right? I would literally just sit down with him and we would go through the word and we would pray, right? And so I started to say to people, I'm like, I'm sorry, don't fix. So when there's a meeting, when there's a Zoom call and we're having a conversation or whatever, or a client session, and then they say, are you available on Friday? Or hey guys, we should meet on Friday. I'll just say, I'm not available on Friday, right? I have prayer sessions. It became initially it was like, it doesn't make sense, but I promise you, it became a thing. People started saying, do not fix meetings with Adaora on Friday. She will not be there.
Yeah.
I set the precedence for that. And people started to fit into it. And I realized it's not as much of a big deal as I thought it was. I was playing this whole story in my head of how people are going to complain. So it worked. So for me, it's first of all, is it important to you? If it is, please, first of all, decide that you are going to sit with yourself and introspect. The other reason why people do not introspect, it is not because of time or the absence of energy. It is because when you introspect, you put yourself in a place where you have to see your shadow. People do not like to see their shadow. In silence, see, when you are performing, when you are moving, when you're going, when you're doing things, right? You don't have to deal with your personal baggage. You don't. Because you'll just be like, I can compartmentalize everything. I'm moving. When you stop, right? You have to deal with your feelings, your emotions, the things that are going on, your mind, where your mind is racing to, all of that. And I think that the way I have had to reframe it for myself is that it is okay to feel these things. It is very okay. In one moment, I can be Adaora, the light of the world. And in the other moment, I can be Petty Adaora, or Petty Dora, as I call her. But And I think I have had to learn that both people are me, first of all.
Mm.
Do you get
Mm.
both Light of the World and Petidora are me. And it depends on what day of the week we're on. you know, and they can come out at different times. But for me, it's like that love, that love that I have for myself first, that I can sit in my silence and I can, figure these things. Now, in terms of practical tips now, I've gone into, I don't know if I'm taking too much of your time, but anyways, in terms of practical tips, so a couple of things. One of the things that has actually helped me is, believe it or not, sound, right? Sound. It's actually helped me a lot. And it took some time because when there's certain sounds that you play, like these days now, they have like all the sleep music and, music that kind of moves you. And those things, it's science. It's not spiritual. So please, guys, don't feel like it's new age things, because we like to say that everything is new age. It's not new age. It's even even in the Bible, they used to play all these instruments. They used to play sitar, strings, and all of that, right? They were not playing boom boom boom. They were not playing drums in the Bible. They played strings. So what we really hear in terms of all these, music that we call New Age is actually strings from the Bible. I don't know why New Age is stealing it from us. But anyways, they like to steal plenty things from us. But that's another conversation for another day, told you. So sound, has helped me. I curate, sounds that are music. I have a playlist on Spotify, for example, that, just kind of puts me into that space, because you almost want to be able to handle your multiple senses at the same time, right? So there's that. One thing that I also read somewhere, and then I started to use it, and it actually worked for me, is sometimes like when you light a candle and you stare at the fire for long. I don't know if you've heard this, but I tried it and phew, game changer. If you light a candle, right, and you stare at the flame, like you literally just stare at the flame for a period of time, your mind starts to just focus on the flame. It is so powerful. Like your mind will zoom into the flame in that moment. And it's something that I started to do. Let me tell you guys something. These tips I'm giving you, they are only effective in application. So there are things that you will hear all the time. That sometimes I'm scrolling on Instagram, I'm scrolling on social media, and somebody says something. It's very easy to be like, hey, I know that, but have you tried it? You have not tried it. If you have not tried it, it cannot work for you. It's that simple. People will say things like, oh, journaling doesn't work for me. I hear people talk about journaling all the time. Have you tried it consistently over a period of time? The answer is no.
Yep, absolutely.
You get what I mean? So for me, like, those would be definitely practical tips, and even scent, even down to the smell. We're also multi-sensory beings, right? I think that sometimes we only focus on like one of our senses per time, and there's no reason. Another game changer. There's no reason why your house should not smell nice, even if your environment is scatter. Like, even if it's not your house, like, even if it's like, okay, for some people, context. For some of you, maybe you are still, having to stay within a bedroom within your parents' house. I've been there, done that, so I get it. For some of you, it's like, oh, you've been wanting to change the paints, the color of the paints in the house. It's just not your style, and you're like, and every time in your head, you're like, you walk into the room and you're like, man, I'm not happy with the way this house looks. One day when I have my house, one day I'll, and then you see all these, you're saving all these, visuals on Pinterest and on Instagram. You're like, one day when I have my house, I'll do this, I'll do that. My thing, I always say to people, I'm like, do the one that you can do. Okay, spray a smell spray something, a scent within your house that, also kind of gives you that joy. Spark joy for yourself, guys. Stop wasting time waiting for the perfect situation. So yes, you can't have many plants in your house like the Instagram guys. Pluck one from the garden. Pluck one. I've gone on a different tangent, but it's the same point. It's the same point. It's just, those are the things that will help you. Dami, please leave our Leave our conversation.
Right. In answering one question, you always answer many things. I'm trying to stick to script so we don't digress. But I like how you all your senses. Because for somebody, this fire one, me, I know try but I can do the sounds. I know, and I know it's not kanaya or kanaya stuff. It's not, guys. But I'm just, why am I looking at fire? I will do music. I will do sense. I will do, because different things will work for different people. Some of us are vision driven. Some of us are auditory driven. So find the one that works for you and continue doing those. Okay, so I'm still speaking about pressure and performance. And I like, do you see the Adaora rhymes one time? I crammed the rhyme in my head, I forgot to know. Something about humanity and reality. She goes to give us freestyle. But you mentioned that because we are in this earthing vessel, we would have those moments of feeling, where God went. I mean, I know I've had those times when I'm looking at people that I was supposed to be like my sisters. And I'm like, why is that everything that you are touching is turning to gold? When did you that you are now on this side? And sometimes, you know, there's a temptation not to even see their post and just waka pass and do like you did not see it. Because you don't want to add to their blowing. You don't want to make their likes 2,000 and plus one. You don't want to add to the comment because Instagram and algorithms as well, the posts that are doing well, 9 days a show. So it's not like you didn't see it. It's not like you've commented in your mind and like it's the thought that counts. So how do we, I mean, you've answered this, so maybe I should even ask it. I'm not even sure what the question is. Will it?
Go ahead, let's take it.
Will it ever end? I know the one that used to pain a lot is when you now ask people, especially your fellow believers, and now say it's God's grace. And I'm just thinking to myself, don't I have God's grace?
Yeah.
So it's just what it is. You have to keep dealing with that spirit of envy or jealousy, or is it a case of work your own ground, create your own strategies, do good at what you are doing, don't focus on whether it's big or great, but as long as you're succeeding, as you've taught us already? Or is it a case of it's just what it is, it's just something you have to keep on dealing with? Or is it everything?
Yeah, so I mean, the crux of your question is basically, you know, how do we stop comparing ourselves to others at the end of the day? You know, do we even need to compare ourselves to others? And I think that, you know, one of the things that's very important, first of all, is for us to unlearn some of the ideas that society, our families, our environment has passed on to us unconsciously, right? There's a lot that we learned when we were kids, for example, right? That we now as adults can choose that we want to accept. I want to accept this, I don't want to accept that, right? And one of the things that you realize is that what you choose will ultimately determine how it is that we navigate life. So for example, we are taught whenever like we see or someone teaches us the idea of high performance, right? We are usually taught high performance with an image that has maybe multiple people on a track, and you have one winner in front. So you have maybe Usain Bolt in front, then you have, you know, the people on the track at the back, and we say that's high performance. Now, if we go by the thought that I shared at the very beginning of this about success being personal, right, then you understand that that picture is flawed. Maybe we're not all running on the same track, first. Maybe we're not even running in the same stadium. Let's forget track. Maybe we're not even in the same stadium, right? I mean, when you think about it, why will God put us in this ecosystem that we're in, his kingdom, so that we can outrun each other? Like when I think about it, it doesn't even make sense to me. So athletics is great for entertainment. Yes, there's a reason why we see those pictures. It's great, but it's not necessarily the standard for how it is that we should live in this world. And so if we see ourselves more as collaborators versus competitors, right, which is the way that I tend to look at things, then you start to move more from a place of abundance, right? And you start to say to yourself that just because I have something, or just because I told you how, yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, just because Toju has something. I know, please maintain your train of thought. I want to say something here, and maybe I'm going to ask somebody's question. I feel like it is easier for you guys who are big to say, oh, we are all collaborators, and we're not competing. Una don't blow finish. Whether you collaborate with I've blown. But it's not easy for me to say come and collaborate.
No, but let me land. Then we'll go there. I feel you. I completely understand you, right? And we'll contextualize that, right? So when I say, for me, it's like if we see ourselves more as collaborators versus competitors, right? We move into that place of abundance. What I'm saying is that just because you have something doesn't necessarily mean that it shortens my ration. So just because you are breathing air doesn't mean that I have less air. And I think that when you understand that, it becomes a perspective shift, right? And that's the way I personally see each other. So for example, 50 of us can launch a podcast. We all have podcasts. Everybody podcast. We will launch it on the same day, right? But there's different people that it's intended for. There's different people it's intended for. And even if we have the same target audience, they will listen to all of us. So what scarcity does a lot of times is that scarcity says that you are taking a portion of my pie. And what abundance says is that you have your pie and I have mine. We're not fighting. And I think that when you have that at the very foundation, that's why I said this thing is about laying your personal foundation. That is what you build upon. It's not even about whether you've blown, you've not blown. It's not that. It is like, what is my personal understanding and belief, right? That's why they say beliefs are very strong. If you believe that people are taking your ration, you will operate from that place standard, right? And so I feel like sometimes it takes time for us and the spirit is weak sometimes. That's the truth. The spirit and the container is weak sometimes. So yes, we do experience those moments of comparison, right? It happens. But I think that when you lay that foundation of we are in an ecosystem, we were all created for a reason. Everybody is special. Nobody's own is better than the next person's own. It really helps. It really helps in the way that you express, you know. And I feel like, you know, that even comes down to even this whole idea of performance that we talked about, right? You're not always putting yourself in a place where you feel like I must perform all the time, because it's just you understand that it is beyond you, and that we are all here to create. I mean, think about it, right? There is someone who created the computer. The person was like, hey, computer has been created. In fact, there's electricity first, then there's computer. Like, computer has been created. Somebody created internet. Mark Zuckerberg started creating social network on top of the internet that somebody else created, right? It's an ecosystem. Like it is, we're all relevant in the grand scheme of things. And I think that when we understand that everybody is relevant, we also operate from a place of humility. You know, we operate from a place of humility. Like nobody is smaller than the next person. You know, I've seen people who, for example, I mean, I posted something a couple weeks ago. It was quite a while ago, but I remember I posted something on my Insta stories. I was, you know, just kind of telling a story, and in the middle of telling the story, I had also talked about the fact that, you know, you need to work really, really hard and get to the point where, I think, just to paraphrase, I can't remember exactly what it was, but the context was that you need to work very hard to get to where it is that you are, so that you're in a place where you can feel more confident and comfortable being able to share, you know, these things that you have accomplished, right? And when I went to the next page to type, I typed on the next page. I said, hold up, guys. You see that thought I just made on this other post, on this page before? I was like, you know what? Maybe you don't even need to work hard. There are going to be people who don't work as hard as us. And they will be successful. Some of them go on TV show and they blow, right? They did not work hard, but they came out and they blew, right? So I had to kind of backtrack into that and say, man, you know what? It's not going to look, people's processes are not going to, their process is not going to look like yours. And that's okay, you know, but yours doesn't need to become their standard. You know, it doesn't need to become the standard, and vice versa. You know, and that's the humility part, is that, man, you know what? Maybe I'm working hard, maybe the next person isn't, but it's okay. Like, we're all still relevant.
Right. Okay. We are taking our tablets and we are receiving healing. I like what you said about the ecosystem. And I think even though sometimes it still feels fun, and I'm going to ask you very soon, because I've been at a place where I felt, and I don't know if I was right or wrong, I felt, instead God help me go on TV show and blow, I don't want to work hard. Your bestie, one of your besties is talking. Hi, Uncle Joe. How are ya?
Hey,
What was I saying now? Ecosystem. Yeah, I was saying that.
Times.
Yeah, I've had those times where I don't know if it was right or wrong. I felt like for my heart space to be safe, I needed to mute some people on social media for a bit. These were people that I know I actually love, but I just couldn't deal with it. I can't remember what was happening with my life that time. Either I just felt, why isn't this happening for me? Or I felt, look, maybe this person is not, this person hasn't done, like, she doesn't know half of what I know, or he doesn't know half of what I know. I don't know what it was. And then you know how devil start bringing things inside your mind that, oh, these people said they bought followers. These people, they've gone and done back end, because apparently they are back end to a lot of things. Me, I'll just be innocent in this life, hustling my way through. Apparently there's a lot of back ends for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Me, I don't have that to deal with. So is it okay to add into practical things to do, to say, okay, I love you, but my heart and my mind can't deal with this right now, and just leave your space for a while? Is this me not being mature, or is this me trying to be mature actually? They have cliques.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, Toji, thank you so much for sharing that so vulnerably. And I think that it's important. I love to have these sort of conversations because I think that they humanize us. And I think that it is important for us to be able to share the experiences that we go through, the ways that we feel, so that other people don't feel strange. Because there will be people who feel awkward, about being able to, especially for someone like you who clearly is a pastor, And so when people like you say stuff like this, I love it because I'm just like, yes, it humanizes who you are. And so I don't think that it is awkward. In fact, I will say that give yourself grace. And I think that it is amazing that you can identify, right, that is how you feel and that you can acknowledge it and that you can block. Or you muted, whatever the can, you can mute. Because let me tell you something, right? It's very easy for me to say, you shouldn't get to the point where you mute people. You should check you should check your heart, and if your heart is this, you won't need to mute people. But the truth is, sometimes, even in order for you to do that heart work, you do need to mute. Because if you don't mute, right, you're still in the middle of the noise, and your brain is going to keep, rolling in that place, and you won't be able to actually solve it, right? So for me, for example, if I was going to give an example, one of the things that I will say, so first of all, other than Oprah and her organic garden, because I'm like super jealous of Oprah, I no go lie, I've been looking at her and I'm like, Auntie O, do you think I should meet you today? Because, these fruits and veggies from your garden are really upsetting me. Anyways, on a serious note, I've never really compared myself to anyone, but that's because that's how I was raised. I feel like my parents never compared me to others, and so it just kind of stuck with me to not really see comparison. However, that being said, I have experienced reverse comparison. Okay, I don't even know what that is, but let me explain. Let me explain what I mean. Okay, so there was a period where I had someone who I considered an online mentee, right? One of the things they would always tell me is, I'm inspired by you, I'm inspired by your appearance, I love your style, and so on and so forth. And so at some point, I started to notice that they were evolving into me, right? Their mannerisms, their style, their platforms, their projects, the projects they decided they wanted to work on, like the ideas they were launching, it just felt like a copy and paste Adaora. Right. And at some point, I'm not going to lie, it got to me. Right. So I was like, at some point, I was even telling my friends, I was like, can this person just stop trying to be like me? Like, I'm flattered, I'm honored, but please stop. Right. And it wasn't coming from a place where I worried that they would be on a similar platform as me. It wasn't that at all. Right. It was that they were launching the same things that I was doing. And it just made me uncomfortable because I was like, you don't even know where those things are coming from. Right. So you're creating these things, you're being this person, but you don't even know where those things are bred from. And so it got to a point where people started to draw comparison between us. Like people would literally mention me on the person's posts or mention them on my post and be like, oh my God, you guys remind me of each other, blah, 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 right? And one day I had to sit down and check my heart, right? And I had to ask myself hard questions, talking about introspection and sitting in a very, shadowy place. Because this was somebody that, to be honest, I actually liked them. So it was someone I liked. It was someone that I saw, I believe is like, a kind person, very inspirational, like overall nice person, right? So I needed to just address it with myself because I realized that it was so frustrating that they were like Adaora too, right? Now, what I had to do was I now had to come from a place of gratitude, right? I had to come from a place where I said to myself, you know what, I'm grateful that I can actually be a springboard for this individual to express themselves in a way that they could never do before, right? I started to see myself as a door, as a pathway, right? And the only way that they knew how to express themselves and break free was by watching me do it. So subconsciously, they were following my pattern, right? And so I reframed it. I said, you know what, Adaora, it's an honor that you actually get to inspire this person to be, an honor that I actually became grateful for. And in that reframing, it's very interesting because over the years, I've actually seen this person evolve more into themselves, and I love it for them, right? I'm genuinely happy to see them progress in the way that they have over time and become more authentically them. But so like I said, it wasn't necessarily comparison to somebody who was, doing better than me. It wasn't that, but it was just that irritation, of like, yeah, you ain't got to be me though, So sometimes I think, we have to reframe these things for ourselves. They exist, they are there, but how can I look at this situation and find gratitude in it? How can I look at this situation and be like, okay, maybe it's not so bad, that this person, I mean, if we're trying to also be like, walking examples of Christ, I mean, like I said, Christ was like the greatest influencer.
Yeah.
And I feel like, we are all influencers in our own right. So you're always going to, influence people. I mean, I was even complaining. I don't complain now, but I mean, back then, I was complaining about this person, having similar mannerisms to me. What will people like Michael Jackson and all those people that you have people who change their appearance to look like them 100%. What would they do?
Yeah.
There's people like that. So yeah, it's part of the journey, and I think we need to give grace to ourselves and to others. That's the ultimate.
Thank you so much. I could really go on, but I will not. I think there are two questions, and I can only see one. I can only see Glam by Kezia's question, and her question is, what can you do when you feel, for someone who always feels that they're not doing something enough, or they could be doing something better? They apply some things to their life and it doesn't work, but when they tell someone else, it works. That's the question.
Okay, so I think, first of all, I think that you need to first of all get rid of the idea that when you tell other people it works, when you apply to when you share something with other people, it works for them and it doesn't work for you. I think that that's a limiting mindset. It is actually a limiting belief. And it's very important that you are able to shift, right, that simple belief first before anything else. Because if you don't, you will not see the opportunities that exist for yourself. You won't see it. Even when it's happening, right? Your brain will always tell you the same story. And you know how we say, like, we are made up of stories. So the stories that we tell ourselves is really who we are, right? There was a time in my life, and I wrote about 2-3 weeks ago, I had written in my newsletter about this, right? There was a point in my life where I would say, for example, that I'm very good at telling other people's stories, but not my own story. It was something that I actively said to myself. And I would also say I'm good at monetizing other people's talents. I'm not good at monetizing my own. If you give me someone else's talent, I'm great at it. When it's down to negotiating for myself, I'm poor at it. These were stories that I told myself. And because I told myself these stories, I started to believe it. I started to embody it. And my life started to pan out in that direction. The moment I started to reframe that story for myself, first of all, to say, yo, it's the same skill set. If it's the same skill set, then what is the problem? The problem is my mindset. The problem is not the skill set. Because if you can use it for other people, you can use it for yourself. So for sure, there's something going on between here and here, between your head and your heart. And unless your head and your heart are in alignment, your skills will never translate. Period. Right? So I think that it is very important for you to, first of all, deal with that. I'm not going to spend time giving tips on, I mean, it's a valid question. I think it's powerful, but I'm not going to spend time giving tips on, what you should do. I really think that this is the core of it. First of all, tell yourself a different story. Then start to act out that story, right? Start to believe that things are going to work out for you. Start to believe that, because when you believe that, you will start seeing opportunities. You will start seeing things that you were not seeing before. You will start seeing it. When your mind is closed, you will not see it.
Right.
It's the simple principle of life. It is not hullabaloo, stoicism or what stoic people say. It's not that. It's not that. It is a life principle. It is a principle of life. And it works every time, I think that's critical first. What was the second question?
No, there was only one question. I'm only taking two questions. I'm sorry, guys. The other question was about self-sabotage, and I think you pretty much answered it with the mindset thing, right? And when there's that disconnect, then even though you have all the best ideas, it's not going to work. My final question, still being practical and vulnerable, is there's so many trends and so many new things coming up that you somehow need to incorporate into your work to make it palatable to the audience you are serving in the generation that we are. Before you're getting over writing, there are videos. Before you get over videos, there are different filters. Before you get over filters, there are different mics to use. Before you get over that, there's something. And it seems everybody's getting on it and doing it so fast. And the more, I don't know, maybe I'm talking about online world a lot because that's where a lot of us operate. But even the trends are happening so fast and people just seem to be latching onto this. Some of us, we are old school. We are just young in this loop, but we are old school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I'm not going to grow up to be that African mother or African woman that is asking her child to come and do what's up for her. Because left to me, I can't stress. If the one way I write no sweet una, make una leave them. How do I deal with how do I deal with keeping up? Because that in itself can be daunting. Yeah. But there's also this that comes from creating good work and seeing your work grow from it. But then you've taken pictures in another person's picture, like which one be this preset again? There's always so much to catch up with. How do you deal?
Mm-hmm. So here's how I deal. I mean, you're right on point, and it can feel very overwhelming. So let me acknowledge that fact that it can feel overwhelming. There's always a one-up somewhere, and the way I have dealt with it, right, is to understand the tools that work for me, right, and to optimize those tools in a way that I'm effectively able to do my work. Point in case, there was a time when I used to see so many coaches in Nigeria, especially, they use Telegram, right? They're very big on Telegram. Like some of them have hundreds of thousands of people on their Telegram. Great, I'm proud of them. I think it's great stuff. I've tried it. Did not work for me. I'm not saying that it cannot work for me if I want to put in effort there, but I realize I don't want to put in effort there. Right? I've been subscribed to Seth Godin's newsletters for at least 10 years. Seth Godin has shown up every single day on his newsletters, every day. Seth Godin is not, by the way, if you go on most of the social media platforms, he's not there. I was trying to follow him on LinkedIn yesterday or day before yesterday. Bros is not even on LinkedIn, doesn't have a LinkedIn page. Gary V has a LinkedIn page. Simon Sinek has a LinkedIn page. Seth doesn't, right? He has figured out what works for him. You will not catch me on Twitter. When I go on Twitter, like I go on Twitter like maybe once a year, honestly. Like I can go and check my Twitter stuff. Like I go once a year, and that once a year is like, oh, I have this idea. I think it'll be great. I want to just put it out there. I want more people to see it. I'll just go and tweet it. As soon as I tweet it, I've logged out. I'm never going in again for another year or maybe another 7-8 months. And I have not found those things or the absence of my presence on those things to take away anything from life. Not at all. Because I understand, first of all, where my people are. And and as a personal brand and a thought leader, I would love to amplify my message. Yes. Do I think that at some point in future, there'll be tweets going out? Maybe, but it probably will not be me doing it. It'll be somebody that I hire to pick up points from things I'm saying and to put it out. Do you know what I mean? So that's that. Is find your community, figure out your community, nurture that community in whatever ways that it works. I have an accountability group, for example, that I run for my Storyfy workshop. You know, we chat on WhatsApp. You guys will not see it on Instagram unless when I post clips here and there. But that's a community that I'm nurturing. I have my newsletter community. Most of the people here are probably not part of my newsletter community, but that's a community that I'm nurturing because, again, those are like they're different expressions, and my sort of expression is very deep, so it's not flimsy. So I can't do quick. People have said, oh, people don't watch long video. My Instagram reels are 1 minute 30. I don't do 20 seconds, except it's like a quick, oh, I want to do video of my day or whatever. But I do long stuff, but people watch it. They do. They actually watch it to the very end because that's my target audience. You know,
your voice is sweet.
Eh? You know, that's my audience, and they care. You know, so I think we just need to find our space that we you know, where it is what I would call our mission field and express within our mission field and not be open to, again, like I said, I always try to put myself in a place where I don't condemn anything to the point where I'm like, I will never, right? Because I might, but it will not be me, right? So at some point in the future, yes, you might see me on 20 platforms, but I promise you, it will not be Adaora sitting down and saying she wants to express on these different platforms. It will be a team that says, you know what, we want to chop your stuff and put it on the different platforms, and that's great. Now, that's part one, sorry. The last part before I wrap up is times and seasons, right? You can be saying the same thing over and over and over again for many years, and when it's your time, people will listen to it differently. I sent a message. One of my mentors is Pastor Sam Adeyemi. You know, he's someone that beyond even being a mentor, he's a friend. He's someone that I completely respect. He's someone that I have been privileged to work very closely with. He's someone that I am privileged to speak with very often. Now, one of the messages I had sent him last week that I thought was, you know, God led it in my heart, and I wanted to say to him, I sent him a message to just say, I call him Doc, by the way, so whenever we chat, I'm like, Doc. so I said, Doc. I was like, it was his birthday, and I was like, Doc, everything that you are saying now, people will receive it with fresh eyes and fresh hearts. Doc has been saying these things for years, consistently. He has been saying the same things. There's nothing he's saying now that is different from what he has said. But when times and seasons, sometimes, right, people's dreams are not disturbing them enough for them to find a dream interpreter. It is not. When certain things happen within your environment, their dreams start disturbing them. If I tell you the number of people that have reached out to me to help them tell their story in just the past 6 to 7 months, like people, every day I'm getting brands and individual and corporate brands that are like, we need to tell our story. We need to tell our story. I have been storytelling for years, guys. I didn't start doing storytelling today. But guess what? The economic situation and the way the world is moving has driven us to a point where if you are not telling your story, it is very likely that people are going to jump and pass you, period. That is just the life. That is the world that we're in now. And so my dream interpretation skills have become premium. They have become extremely valuable because people's dreams are disturbing them. And when people's dreams are disturbing them, they will come and find you. So just be consistent, right? And be like, you know what? Times and seasons, I understand it. So in those moments, in those times where you may not necessarily be the thing, spend that time investing in yourself, right? And investing in your energy as well, so that you can actually run when the opportunity comes, because it's always going to come. I believe that if you are consistent over time, it will come. But what happens sometimes is that when people get to that point, they are so exhausted that they cannot pull the fish onto the boat. The fish is plenty. Exhaustion will hit you. And when exhaustion hits you, you can never pull onto your boat. So in those moments, so sometimes when people tell me I'm bored, you know, I feel like things are not working for me, I feel like, you know, and I tell them, I say, rest, sleep, energize your energy. You know, told you you're a mom. So you know how people used to tell us, you know how before you give birth, they tell you, sleep when the baby is sleeping. And you'll be forming hard guy. When the baby is sleeping, you'll be scrolling. You'll be scrolling instead of sleeping.
But yeah.
You know, and you know, so I tell people, I say, please rest. God, this time that you think that is nothing is happening for you, you are in a place of rest. Joseph was, you know, I said Joseph's imprisonment was rest. He needed to rest in prison. Joseph was resting in prison. You know, he was resting in prison, because if he did not rest that rest, that he was sleeping and waking up and he was in the same, within the same four walls, how will he have energy to be prime minister? You know. So sometimes we gotta just remember that, and you know,
right, love it. Hey God, okay, Adaora, I promise you before God, and we're going to do this in 2 minutes, because by 9:30 sharp we must finish it. So I'm asking my question in 15 seconds. So, and I love that you've spoken to spirit, you've spoken to our spirit, you've spoken about our mission, our purpose. We are in a mission field. God is expressing through us. She's spoken about our mind. Can you hear all the people Adaora is following? She's subscribing to newsletter. Are you subscribed to Insta blog? It's okay. She's spoken to your body. She's spoken about resting. She's spoken about vitamins. She's spoken to your whole entity, right? And which is how we're supposed to deal with ourselves as believers. It's not just your spirit should be feeding. Your spirit don't they choke. No outlet, right? And that's why the Bible says in Thessalonians, present your whole bodies to me, your spirit, your soul, and your mind, your spirit, your soul, and your body. So my question is, what is the place of hard work? You've spoken about consistency, because I feel sometimes we're not as consistent. You said something about your dream has not disturbed you enough. So some people are, especially with this social media, so people post once in 5 months, once in 7 months. That momentum to keep on going on. What's that place of hard work, consistency, diligence, staying the course? Because sometimes you realize that, oh, I haven't been doing this thing for 2 years. Now I have to come back to it, and then it's harder. In 1 minute, what's the place of hard work and consistency? Because one of the things I started with is, before people started telling stories and doing strategy and branding and, oh, you've been doing this for what, maybe 15, 16 something years. Now people are shouting, but you've been there. How do you have staying power? 1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute. Consistency is based off of, you know, consistency has to be built on a foundation, and that foundation needs to be from a place that is very authentic to yourself, right? Which is why a lot of the things I've said today has been built around just being authentic to self. If you do not express in a way that is comfortable for you, if you do not express in a way that is honest and authentic to you, you are not going to enjoy expressing. So it is always going to feel like a chore when you go on social media to type and to share. If you express from a place that is authentic, which requires a level of vulnerability that most people do not like, if you share from that place, right? I feel that, you see, we're natural storytellers. Storytelling is not just a skill that you learn. It is a skill, yes, but it's part of us as human beings. We're born storytellers. We tell stories all the time, every day, all the time to our friends. So we know how to tell it. So I feel that the hard work is not so much, you know, discipline. Discipline is important, but I think that if you are disciplined in something that you don't enjoy doing, the discipline and the hard work is a waste. So find find your authentic voice, find what is most comfortable for you and is most honest to you, and express that way. Right. And I'll end it by saying time is the greatest storyteller. I always end my sessions by saying that. Time is a great storyteller. You know, it'll fall in place.
Quotes is not your thing. Don't go and look for quotable quotes. If rhyming is not your thing, don't try and be like P Dams. Even with nice.
Imagine if I started posting like scams, I'll go crazy. I'll just be like, so that means I now have to be thinking about what will rhyme.
Right, beautiful. Love it. Okay, so before we go real quick, let's do something real quick before we present Adaora with her award, because she do deserve award today. Thank you for the extra time. I'm really grateful. So let's do this little game to help us know you a little bit more, nothing too deep. So T or
T.
Music or books?
Music.
Movies or series?
Series.
Really? Cool. Would you rather go to the gym or do online training by yourself?
The gym.
Online church or on-site church?
On-site church, for sure. On-site.
Go to Daystar.
I do, yeah. I go to Daystar.
Okay. Audio Bible or written Bible?
Both, depending on depending on where I am and what I need. But both, for sure.
Okay. In your house by yourself or go out with friends?
In my household, I love my friends, but my closest friends get to come to my house. If you've not been to my house, we're probably not as close as you think we are. Because I'm so selective about who comes to my house.
The subbing for me all at the same time, but it's okay.
We've been playing dates for our sons since forever.
My children don't even recognize your son as who he was then anymore. It is well. So biscuits or chocolates?
Biscuits.
All right. Comedies, thriller/action or drama?
Drama, for sure.
When next are you going to do with Vaughn or braids for us?
It's not happening. That ship has sailed. It has sailed.
And now
it has sailed. You know, I don't know. I'm actually going to go and get my hair highlighted again because I've cut off all my highlights over time because I snip my hair every 2 weeks and then the highlights keep going off. So now I need to go and do something. I thought about locking it, but I don't know.
That length of hair fits you so well. No?
I'll think about it. Maybe one day.
That line to me. Thank you so much. You guys, please help me to thank her. I feel like presenting you awards. Please, can you appreciate it? It's been excellent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
It's been deliverance. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for engaging, for commenting, for staying for so long. I'm really grateful.
Thank you so much, Toju. And, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks, everyone, for staying here. And, I'm just going to say that, I pray that the words that we shared today will be planted in your hearts and it will manifest fruit because I believe that everything that has come out from Toju's mouth, everything that's come out from my mouth has been ordained for such a day as this. There are people who are on this call who needed to listen to this. It wasn't by mistake that you're here. And Toju, thank you so much for being a vessel to be able to birth that. I love what you're doing and I'm so excited for it. So God bless you. And God bless you, P-Dams. I just want to dash you as per Anko so that you will not feel left out. Because next thing now, you'll be comparing yourself to Pastor Toju. So that you don't feel left out. God bless you too.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Adaora. Have a good night. Take care, guys.
All right. Take care. Bye.